Hallo, herzlich willkommen in meinem Podcast Ziele setzen, Ziele erreichen mit Objectives and Key Results. Mein Name ist André Klaassen und meine Mission ist ganz einfach. Ich möchte, dass du mit deinen Zielen erfolgreich bist, sei es für dich persönlich, in deinem Team oder in deiner ganzen Organisation. Und jetzt, lass uns gemeinsam starten. Hallo, schön, dass du dabei bist. In dieser Folge spreche ich mit Bart den Haak, der über 10 Jahre Erfahrung in OKR hat. Bart habe ich auf meiner OKR-Reise sehr früh kennengelernt und habe sogar meine erste OKR-Ausbildung bei ihm gemacht. Bart den Haak nutzt seine Kompetenzen aus der Strategieumsetzung, dem Lean Management und OKR, insbesondere im Umfeld der Entwicklung komplexer Digital- und Softwareprodukte. Und genau in diesem Umfeld erlebt Bart, dass viele OKR-Einführungen scheitern, weil das Framework einfach falsch eingesetzt wird. Diese Podcast-Episode ist eine weitere Premiere für mich, da ich mit Bart das Gespräch auf Englisch führe. Und jetzt wünsche ich dir viel Spaß mit dieser Episode und ab jetzt geht es in englischer Sprache weiter. Welcome to my podcast. Today I'm excited to introduce my guest, Bart den Haak. Bart is a renowned expert in the field of objectives and key results with more than 10 years of experience of applying OKRs in training professionals and usage. In this episode, I will discussing with Bart the question, why is OKR so hard in digital production environments? So, sit back, relax, and get ready for an insightful conversation with Bart den Haak. But before we start, Bart, can you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and what motivates you in your daily work?
Yeah, so my name is Bart. I'm from the Netherlands. As you probably can hear from my accent. So most Dutch should speak German, but I'm one of those Dutch that can't. So I'm sorry. And I had it in high school for 1 year, and then I found it too difficult. But I can still understand a little bit. Some of my friends are German, so yeah, we always make jokes about that. And I'm a software engineer for more than 22 years now. I still am. I still think that I think you never lose that that part. So I still do some active software development these days. But I've worked for various companies in my career, for ESA, the European Space Agency, until large big corporates like ING Bank, and everything in between, from startups to scale-ups, in various positions in engineering roles, but also in management roles, CDO roles. And throughout my career, I think it was like 10 years ago, I got little bit frustrated because I saw all these engineering teams, product teams, and they found it so hard to describe the value that they're producing. And maybe if you work in a digital environment, then every product owner or product manager says, "Oh, we need to deliver product value or customer value," and everybody asks, like, "What is that?" so then my obsession started actually with metrics. So how can we actually quantify the value instead of, customers just need to like it, or we just need to increase satisfaction or happiness, and those kind of fake terms. So I started into quantifying results, and I got basically obsessed about it. And at that time, 10 years ago, so the company that I worked for introduced also OKRs. And it was a big disaster, by the way. But I saw the potential of this very powerful tool to actually motivate teams, to empower teams, to grow. So I started blogging about it, and eventually ended up writing a book about it. In the past few years, I've been consulting and helping a lot of customers implementing OKRs. um, until I also figured out that it is quite hard to actually do it right. So I would pause here. And so this is a little bit my background.
Bart, before we dive into our main topic, tell us something about your first contact with OKRs 10 years ago and your experience with the adoption of OKRs.
Yeah, it was in a small company in the fintech domain, and they wanted to give it a try. Yeah. Yeah, so the OKRs were like the big cascade party basically. So you start at the top, and then we have 5 OKRs at the top with key results, and then the key results become then the objectives for the managers, and then the managers write 5 OKRs, and then the key results from the managers then become the objectives from the teams, and then they created 5 OKRs. So then you ended up with hundreds of OKRs within a small company basically. And then of course you need to have then we need to buy OKRs management tool to manage all those OKRs. And well, that's actually got me frustrated, right? So it was a big failure because of that, because that's basically how you maybe want to do project management. Right? You want to control everything and micromanagement everything, and want to validate it via a tool. So that's not, of course, not the purpose of OKR. So yeah, that's why it went wrong, among many reasons. But yeah,
This
these
is,
days.
yeah, yes, when I speak with business people, this is almost or often the idea of OKRs to control top down, to make decision execution faster with OKR, play this cascade game, a nice term. But OKRs at the bottom aren't, in my opinion, very useful, especially for the digital space. And this is interesting, how to solve this problem, how to translate such business OKRs in product goals. Maybe you have some experience in that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that's typical. So and I think the problem also lies a little bit in the OKR framework itself. So OKRs alone is basically a smart goal, right? And you make it really smart by trying to make it measurable with the key results. But I also see companies that still don't do that. But in essence, it's just a smart goal, right? And that's what Christina Wodke also says. Like, they're just smart goals, right? It's not nothing fancy, and they're really old. And yeah, that you translate everything, all the company goals, into OKRs or into smart goals. There's no difference. And back in the days, we have this big goal cascading. We have KPI trees and all this kind of things. And this is how companies still today operate, right? They just cascade down, goals down. And it doesn't really matter if you call them OKRs or smart goals, KPIs or OGSM. Doesn't really matter. The problem is that this model is dysfunctional, right? And basically, if you ask the company what has changed if you implement this, yeah, maybe you get a little bit more focus, maybe you get a little bit more alignment, but in the end, the bottom line results of the company won't change because of this. So and this is the problem, right? And this is, in my opinion, there are different flavors of OKRs. Right? And I'm not saying that mine is the best, but I think you should apply them in different kind of situations. But I think there are 3 types of how you could use and leverage OKRs, in my opinion. One is just basically project management. This is what 90% of the companies that use OKRs, that basically want to do project management or portfolio manage with them. And that has pros and cons, right? And there's another school that says, okay, you can leverage OKRs for for change management, right, and behavior change. And so that's a very powerful school, I would say. So that depends a little bit on 4DX. But this is in companies that are probably not that digital, right? A hospital or an hotel or some of these kind of companies, right? They could leverage the power of OKRs as well, but they probably are going to use it a little bit more different. And then, of course, you have the whole OKRs that lives inside a digital space where you're actually going to use OKRs for product development. And this is the whole camp of Marty Kagan and, focusing really hard on a problem you would like to solve and then empowering teams with that idea. So since I have an engineering background and work a lot in software space, I tend to focus on that latter. So on that last one. So, and that's my favorite domain. But a lot of companies are not even close to work in this situation or work in this way.
Bart, let us recap what we have learned. In your experience, there are 3 different approaches for using OKRs. The first approach is to cascade down business goals to the department level. The top OKRs are mainly KPI driven, and the results of this approach are rather below average. The second approach is for change management and is widely inspired by the book 4DX, the 4 disciplines of execution, and is about changing behaviors in the whole organization. And for the digital production space, there are OKRs, which are used for and by product management. This approach was developed and refined by people like Marty Kagan, Jeff Gotthelf, and Joshua Seiden. And from my knowledge, Marty has abandoned using OKRs. He said that OKRs are a good tool, but too complex in practical usage for most of the people. Now, let's dive further into the digital production management. How can we apply OKRs correctly in this environment?
Yeah. So good question. Yeah. And so I'm also, I would almost agree with Marty Kagan that, he's not using or suggesting to use OKRs any longer. And I see a similar pattern. I see that most companies, like I would say that 90% of the companies or even higher, are not ready to use OKRs, right? They don't have the right culture in place, and culture is just this big umbrella term, right? So, but in essence, if you unpack that, you don't see the right behaviors in these kind of companies. And that all starts, if you want to use OKRs work perfectly in an environment where you have already empowered teams. They're already data driven or data informed. You have great product managers there, and then you put OKR on top of that, on that culture. Then it can really take off, and you can really leverage the power of OKRs. But if you have an organization that's not ready for that, they don't have empowered teams. They don't have an understanding of metrics and measurements, and they don't understand how goal setting works. They don't understand behavior and emotional change techniques. Then it will be very hard to sprinkle OKRs on top of that, or that type of organization. And then it, in my opinion, it can only cause more harm than good, right? So. And also things is that you need to have a couple of supporting capabilities. Like I said, you need to have the capability of scientific thinking, understanding how experiments work. You need to have dashboards, visibility of metrics, causal effect relationship of metrics, and all this stuff is like prerequisite before you can actually leverage the power of OKRs. And many organizations that is still not there. You see that products are not instrumented. You still have a product owner model where you have Scrum with product owners. In my opinion, is not a model that can work. But yeah, you need to have a culture you need to have a culture and operating model, and you need to have a modern development stack, right? If you want to run a lot of experiments in production, for example, you need to have a good modern development stack. Then you need also a good modern data stack. You need to have good data analysts in place. Things like Power BI or Tableau, all this kind of analytic tools you need to have in your organization in order to get out of it. You need to have integrated customer knowledge and distributed data literacy, I would call that, right? So you need to have all those things in place, and then you can put OKRs on top of that, and then it can really work.
Okay, I don't know a single company which fulfills all your prerequisites, but that's my problem now. I should say stop using OKRs to all my clients because all these clients didn't have all this prerequisites.
Exactly, and I see this over and over again, and then people are going to blame the tool. They're going to say, "Oh, you see, OKRs don't work here," right? And then they go to another tool, right? They're going to use OGSM, or V2MOM, or whatever stupid framework they want to use, because in the end they're all the same, right? 40x, they're all the same, right? In the end, it all comes down to setting a bold goal and then define methods to achieving them. But if you want to work with OKRs, which is really data informed, really heavy on metrics, you need to have people that can understand how product works and how to develop strategies and how to leverage the data and set up experiments to make progress on that. So OKRs in that sense is not only a goal setting method, it's also a goal achievement method. And if you don't understand those basic foundations, then OKRs won't work. And of course, there's it's not that black and white. Yes, you can maybe run a pilot of OKRs and simultaneously develop these other capabilities in the organization. So that's what I normally advise with clients that I work with, is that you need to, if you want to use OKRs, right, great, but maybe apply or maybe start using OKRs on a team or a small part of the organization that is already maybe a little bit more advanced in that area. So you see that if you have a larger company, that maybe some teams that work with online products, like retail kind of areas, that's typically organizations that already have data, right? They already have they leverage Google Analytics. They can maybe instrument their data or instrument the systems easily, like a website or something like that. So in that space, it's relatively more easy to start adopting OKRs. But in the rest of the organization, I doubt if you ever want to use OKRs. So that's.
But before we say that you can use OKR at the end of all this, culture advances in the teams, but you use OKRs. I have read lately a blog post from you where you used OKRs as, in my opinion, as a vehicle to help teams to get some of these capabilities, to help teams to start change their behavior, to help teams to start adopt better practices in software development. So, in my opinion, it is possible to use OKR to help people in their transformation or their journey to get better.
Yeah, great question. So ideally, it comes back to the three types of use cases of OKRs, in my opinion. So there's project management, there's behavior change or change management, and there's of course product development. So you can ask a team. So if you want to if you develop an OKR for a team that's not ready for it, right? They will struggle, and they have no idea on how to achieve it, and they will abandon it. They will find it really hard to come up with baseline metrics. They have no idea on how to start measuring, or start measuring the right things and how that's related to business goals. So if you're going to apply an OKR on top of that, it probably won't work because the team is not ready for that. So you need to have a really high performing team in that sense, like a real product team that can actually take that challenge and say, oh, yes, we can make an impact on that OKR. We know exactly how, or we don't know how exactly how. We're going to discover how, and then we will figure out along the way, and we will use different kind of discovery methods in combination with delivery. And this is the whole Jeff Cotfield and the lean UX discovery delivery cycle. But many teams are not there yet, right? So then you go back to the other type of OKRs, which is, well, you're going to use OKRs for behavior change, for change management. And but you need to be really clear in the organization that yes, we are using OKRs, but we use OKRs only for change management. So that is clear for everybody in the organization, because otherwise you get some teams that use OKRs for product development, and you have teams that use OKRs for behavior change. There are different mixtures, but how do you know which is which type? So I think it makes sense that if you say, well, we're going to use OKRs for change management, that you are very clear to the rest of the organizations. Hey, we are going to use OKRs, but we're going to use it a little bit different than many other organizations, and that's very like senior leadership really needs to make this message clear. So everybody understands. And then, of course, yes, you can use OKRs to focus on behavior change of the team itself, which can be quite powerful, and is one of my favorite techniques as well. But you need to be careful there. It's a very powerful technique, and if you use it wrongly, also things can go haywire. So, and you need to have. There's some prerequisites as well. You need to have like the psychological safe environment where the teams feels free to start challenging themselves on their own behavior, and again, it requires a little of good management as well. So yes, it can work in those two ways, and I've seen transformations can happen with this kind of
Okay,
technique. Yeah.
to make it clear, you say behavior change management is a great solution space for OKRs, but you have to make it explicitly clear. This is the way we use OKRs. We don't use it for enhancing KPIs of the business space, but we use it for remove our impediments, for make our work more professional, better.
Yeah, but and that will also lead to, of course, to business results, right? So if you're going to if you think about it, if you change behavior, then you change the habits of teams and people, and that will lead to business results. So it can be quite powerful, and I would argue that in many organizations, especially the large organizations, I think the problem to have better bottom line results is not necessary in the product development space, right? Their products are already established. They've done already, they're well, of course, they will do only like 10% improvements on their products, right? But I think their challenges are, I would say 90% is internal, right? Their innovation is social. So if you can set up a mechanism to do social innovation by having like a framework in place for continuous change management, and not like a transformation. Hey, we're going to do a digital transformation, or we're going to do an agile transformation, or whatever. That transformation has a deadline most of the times. Like after 1 year, we digitally transformed, or we agile, right? But that's not the case. You should continuously improve yourself, and having such a framework in place for continuously change, I think is quite powerful and can be a differentiator for many organizations. But I think they should stop using OKRs for a team, a Scrum team that has a product owner has no way how to make any impact on business results. I think that's like a myth, and the organization not there yet. And you should wonder if you want a team that is focusing on a goal that they can never achieve, right? So then of course OKRs for change management is a great way. But yeah, it isn't any different than 4DX. It's basically the same principles, but then with maybe a little bit more modern techniques. So yeah, I think the summary would be, yeah. So the summary of the problem in the digital space is that you need to have the foundation and a couple of supporting capabilities in place before you can start using OKRs. And so there's this flywheel that you want to start.
Yes.
This the OKR cycle that can work if you have those supporting capabilities and foundation in place. And I think many organizations still need to work on the foundation and supporting capabilities until they can actually leverage the power of OKR. So that would be the summary.
And you can start the flywheel. This is what I have learned. You can start this flywheel if you focus before in a very focused way in the behaviors changes. No, you can you don't use OKRs to enhance a business value, but you use OKRs to enhance the behaviors of the teams, and indirectly you create more business value. Before we leave, Bart, we started, or you started, that you say the first point which got me interested in OKRs was to quantify business value. Let's look at this topic. How do you quantify business value in 2023 with OKR? Is it possible? And how do you do it?
Yeah. So quantifying business value of OKRs, I think, isn't the right approach. I think you should quantify. I think you should quantify business value before you even set OKRs, and
Before you
so
say, okay.
that's the whole problem. Everybody says OKRs is difficult, but actually OKRs are super easy. I would say if you have the foundation in place, if you have the supporting capabilities in place, then OKRs are really simple, right? You just set a target, actually, on some of
Yeah.
the existing KPIs that you already have. The problem is that these KPIs aren't there. Yes, a lot of companies, they have their KPI tree and the P&L trees, and and they can use that for all the operational support. Many companies do this for decades, right? And so
Yeah.
so yes, all those metrics are in place, and but the problem is that OKRs are, especially in the digital product space, aren't metrics that you want to influence in any of these trees. So
Yeah.
that's also the reason why I'm a contributor of a new book, which is called Project Performance, where actually mention like a different kind of model where what you need to build up next to your KPI trees or whatever trees that you have, in order to understand how your business model works. And if you understand how your business model works, then setting OKRs is easy. So, but you don't need to use OKRs for that. You can already build these models today. But the problem is that in many organizations, these models are not present, and that's why again, I come back to the foundation. Do you understand how your company works and how everything is related to each other? And do you understand where there are the leverage points? And in order to understand that, you need to have like a business strategy and a product strategy, and both of them are typically absent in most companies. So it all comes down, having a good strategy, and part of the strategy is having all those insights. And if you don't have those insights, then setting OKRs is a complete waste of your time. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Most KPIs in organizations are support KPIs or are financial or controlling KPIs to support business operations, but they didn't reflect the nature of the business, or in most cases. And I've read lastly a book about Jeff Bezos, and there was a flywheel, Drehrad, and the main idea was you have to deeply understand which forces or which behaviors of your customers drive your business. If you know that and measure it, then you have a foundation for business KPIs which reflects the nature of your business.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant, right? So most of the KPI trees, there's no customer in there, right? So and and yeah, I prefer to call like also Christina. She we both like to use the word health metrics of the company or of your team, and that's what they are. They're really important, like you said. They're really important.
What you say about business KPIs make me think of John Cutler. And with John, I'm also bringing the last name to this show. John Cutler propagates, I think, based on lean management, the North Star framework. A North Star is a ultimate KPI that indicates a desired customer behavior in context of product development. And to give an example, on WhatsApp, a North Star could be the ratio of replies to posts, which indicates the liveliness on the platform. I have read that you are writing a new book, Bart, that addresses this question: how to use behavior matrix not only in product management, but also in business as a source for KPI.
Yeah, and then I completely support all the work that John Cutler is doing. His great work with the North Star framework, and in that sense, there are similar techniques. I prefer to call them ultimate OKRs, right? Which is the ultimate OKR, which is focused around business value. Yeah, and then you can say, oh, the objective is like the North Star metric, and then you have a couple of key results, which are the inputs, and they're persistent in time. So there's, but mine approach is a little bit more on wider enterprises. Um, yeah, more wider enterprise. But yeah, the ideas from John Kotler are really great, and the whole ideas of understand doing system thinking and supporting loops and triple learning loops, and um, it's all work that I also support, and that I also suggest customers should do. But that's really tough, right? To get all this stuff in place is really product development, which is, for most companies that are still struggling to implement Scrum. It's a bridge too far, right? So it will take years for a company that still struggles today with Scrum to get to a moment in place where they actually can leverage the power of product thinking and lean UX and all those kind of things. Also, the space where OKR sits in. Yeah, so that I'm a big fan of that. But I think if you want to use OKRs a little bit more broadly, then you also need to look at supporting capabilities of the organization that are also important for achieving strategic goals.
Thank you. To one last question. Sorry, Bart, but it is interesting for me. At the beginning of our talk in our podcast, you mentioned that you are not so happy with the product owner role.
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
what do you mean with this?
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of Scrum,
It's
and
okay.
and
Yeah?
and you know,
And
and if I so I'm used to work with teams, product teams that already passed the station of Scrum, and there's value in Scrum for sure. But luckily, you said it correctly, right? A product owner is a role, and in many companies, it's a job title and not a role. But if you look in real good product organizations, they have a product manager, right? I work with companies and they have a product managers. They don't have product owners anymore, right? You have a product manager that has a product vision and that has a strategy and that can leverage the power of OKRs to align teams, for example, by having shared OKRs between teams, and that's how they can make the best impact. Where you see in traditional organizations that implement a Scrum and they all have a product owner, and every team is going to create their own OKR, which is ridiculous, right? So um, every team is going to create their own OKR. The product owner is going to create their own OKR, but they have limited sight about the big picture of the company, how to really make an impact. And some of those teams, those so-called product teams, they don't have real influence. And basically, the product owner is like a manager of the backlog, or a business analyst, right? But not really a product manager. Um, Maybe there's some senior POs, right? And of course, not everybody's the same, but typically I see product owners that are inside a more like project management role with some business analytic skills. But they're not product managers, and that's also the problem why OKRs won't work, because you need to have somebody that has like a real oversight and understanding the product vision, and understanding that if you want to really make an impact on some business outcomes, that you need to collaborate with multiple teams together to make something really great. And yeah, I think it's not a good idea that you have like a product owner that is creating OKRs for a team. It's in a silo basically, and then try to make an impact. It doesn't work.
I think the product owner role and the product management roles are two very different roles. The product management is, in my opinion, a very needed capability to make good products. You need intensive product management capabilities and experience to make a good product, in my opinion. And the product owner role is maybe or the idea of product owner, in my opinion, was to make product managers more self-empowered, more like a founder, like a CEO of your product. Product ownership means also ownership of the product success, in my opinion. It is a step up to the product manager role, but in the reality, it is not an entrepreneurship. The product owner, in reality, it is a backlog owner, yes. And this is, the certification, it seems to be so easy to be a product owner. You need the 3 days and boom, you are a product owner. And it is, no, it is very wrong. It's a very wrong idea. If you are a good product manager and you do the product owner training on top, maybe it is a good thing. I'm very, but it is not. Yeah, but in reality, you didn't learn much. Yes, you are right.
Yeah, and I totally agree. What you said, like the product management capability is lacking in many organizations. Right? So because we have, I work with a lot of organizations. They adopted the Spotify model. That's also a terrible thing to do. But anyway, but in that model, there's also, well, you have got tribe leads, but that now some of them they have like product managers in those kind of positions, but some of they're only like tribe directors or something like that. Well, there's no product management capability whatsoever in those organizations, and that's also capabilities that you need to develop. That's what I also meant with the supporting capabilities to start using OKRs. And when you have a product manager in place, then you could say that, then you could argue whether or not you need a product owner in different teams. I think you don't. I think you need to have business analysts in place. Um, so so you need to have BAs in those teams, or customer journey experts or UX experts in place in those teams. That's what you probably need. And then if you really want to use OKRs and you adopt the way of working of OKRs, because that's ultimately what you want, then I see in my experience that most teams, they abandon Scrum because it's too limited. There are too many ceremonies. And basically, in my experience, developers don't like that, right? And that's the whole beauty of OKRs. You can just disabandon all those things, and you can only use the right elements from Scrum, or my favorite software development approach is extreme programming. So then we use OKRs in combination with extreme programming, and that's really powerful. And then we don't have backlogs, right? We don't have roadmaps anymore, and and that saves and that reduces a lot of waste in the organization. Hence, the title of my book, Lean OKRs, you remove all that kind of governance waste around delivering great products, and I think that's ultimately what you want. But like I said, and like you also saying, right, many organizations are not there yet, and it will take at least a couple of years
It's
to get there.
interesting because extreme programming was, in my opinion, the start or one foundation of the agile movement, and it should be a destination now again for some teams.
Yeah, extreme programming. I've used extreme programming my whole life, so
Yes.
I'm a big fan, and maybe I'm biased. But if you ever used extreme programming, then
Yes.
things like Scrum are obsolete.
My
right?
main problem with
doesn't make any
extreme
sense to use
programming
those
is I love extreme programming. I love the framework. I'm very I'm very inspired by Kent Beck and Ron Jeffries and the other people, but extreme programming is a terrible product name. A terrible product name, and this is,
it's a terrible
in my
product name.
opinion,
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is one of the problems of extreme programming. Yes.
Yeah, but coming back to the foundation again, I think if you have teams or product teams that that don't use most of the practices from extreme programming, they will find it very hard, right? So I think this is also a prerequisite for all those things, right? You need to adopt continuous integration and continuous delivery, because you want to run a lot of experiments in production, for example, right? You need to have these capabilities in your team. And if you still struggle with low quality of software, you have still a lot of bugs in your system, you have a lot of maintenance in your system. Doing OKRs doesn't make any sense because you're drowning in technical debt and all these other things. So yeah, probably 50% or more of the team capacity goes into fixing bugs and doing maintenance. So yeah, there's only so much you can leave to do product innovation.
Bart, thank you for having me. Thank you for this great talk, and I'm very interested in your book. I will write a blog post about the main points of our talk. And for you listeners, if you are interested in Bart and his work, I will have links to his book and to his website in the show note. Thank you, Bart, for this talk about OKRs in the digital space.
It was my pleasure, and it was nice meeting you again.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
See you. Bye.
Danke, dass du mir zugehört hast. Und wenn du jetzt Interesse an weiteren Impulsen zum Zielsystem Objectives and Key Results hast, dann gehe jetzt direkt auf meine Webseite andreklassen.de. Registriere dich dort für meine OKR-Impulse. Als kleines Dankeschön erhältst du meine Checkliste für Objectives and Key Results zum Ausdrucken. Über eine Bewertung dieses Podcasts auf iTunes würde ich mich besonders freuen. Damit hilfst du nicht nur mir, sondern allen anderen Hörern auch, die Inhalte dieses Podcasts noch viel besser zu machen. Und jetzt wünsche ich dir ganz viel Erfolg bei der Umsetzung deiner Ziele.